Say your prayers, take your vitamins, and believe in yourself. For an entire generation, that was the gospel of Hulkamania, preached by the biggest star the world of professional wrestling had ever seen. But what if I told you that the man who told millions of kids to stand up for what's right was the same man who, at a single critical moment, crushed the dreams of his own brothers in arms? To understand what happened, you have to understand the world of 1986. Vince McMahon Jr. was a man on a mission. He had shattered the old territory system, a gentleman's agreement between regional promoters. He invaded their markets, syndicated his TV shows across the country, and poached all their top talent. He was building an empire, and wrestlers flocked to him for the promise of fame and fortune. But that promise came at a staggering price. The life of a WWF wrestler was a brutal grind. They were on the road for 25, sometimes 30 days a month.
Brian and I averaged 27 days a month working, 3.5 years straight. One time we went 52 days in a row.
They paid for their own rental cars, their own hotels, their own food. They were told they were independent contractors, but they were controlled entirely by one company. They were exclusive, yet they had none of the benefits of being an employee.
Because the shocking thing about McMahon and his company is the extent to which he shielded himself from responsibility for his wrestlers' welfare. And the main way that he's done this is actually pretty simple, because while you might reasonably think that the wrestlers employed by him are his employees, they're actually not. They're merely independent contractors. Which, as former wrestler Jesse Ventura pointed out on Howard Stern, is just insane.
How are they self-employed when you're signed exclusively?
Right.
You can't work for nobody else.
It's a monopoly.
Yeah. They tell you when and where you'll work. They tell you who you'll work. They can totally control your life.
And you're an independent contractor.
And yet they call you an independent contractor. How has the government allowed them to get away with that for 35 to 40 years?
The physical toll was immense. They wrestled hurt because taking time off meant losing your spot, losing your pay. To cope with the pain, to maintain the cartoonishly muscular physiques the era demanded, a dangerous culture took hold. Steroids, painkillers, cocaine, alcohol. It was an open secret, a chemical cocktail to survive the lifestyle. They were generating millions for the WWF, but they had no health insurance, no retirement plan, no disability, no workers' comp. They were disposable assets in a billion-dollar machine. Into this world stepped Jesse the Body Ventura. Ventura saw the injustice. He saw the obscene pay gap, where Hulk Hogan was reportedly making 10 times more than almost everyone else combined. He saw his friends breaking their bodies with nothing to show for it in the long run, and he decided to do something about it. The idea got a powerful boost from an unlikely source. In an elevator, Ventura ran into Gene Upshaw, the head of the NFL Players Association. Upshaw, a titan of organized labor, gave Ventura advice to form a union.
And I got on an elevator with Gene Upshaw. Remember, head of the NFL union?
Right.
I remember Big Gene looked at me and all he said to me was, "You boys need to unionize." And I said, "I know, Gene."
Armed with that knowledge, Ventura devised a plan. The timing was perfect, just before WrestleMania 2, the company's biggest show of the year. The plan was simple, a classic labor tactic. In the locker room, he proposed they band together and threatened to walk out. They wouldn't perform at WrestleMania unless McMahon agreed to negotiate with a federally recognized union. Jim Brunzell, a friend of Hogan's from their early days, was tasked with getting the Hulkster on board. He laid it all out, the need for healthcare, for a pension, for a future. Hogan's response was cold and clear. He said a union would hurt him the most. He said he wasn't going to rock the boat.
I was on Vince McMahon's team all the way, so I went straight to Vince. I said, "Hey, Jesse, stirring shit up, man. You know, he's trying to start a union here, and next thing you know, you're going to have a bunch of wrestlers walk out on you in Madison Square Garden, and just want to let you know what's up."
McMahon's reaction was swift and brutal. He called Ventura and threatened to fire him on the spot if he ever uttered the word union again. He went to every other wrestler he suspected was involved and delivered the same threat. The message was clear: fall in line or your career is over. The fear worked. The union drive collapsed instantly, and the dream was dead. The legacy of that moment is the world wrestlers still live in today. The failure of that union drive allowed McMahon to legally cement the independent contractor model. It's a model that by any objective legal standard is a sham, but it's a sham that has served the company for 40 years. It locks wrestlers out of the National Labor Relations Act, meaning they have no federally protected right to organize. It even exposes them to antitrust lawsuits if they try to bargain collectively. They could be sued into financial ruin for trying to get a better deal. The human cost has been catastrophic. Generations of performers have worked without a safety net. They pay for their own health insurance. They have no retirement funds. When they're injured, they're often on their own. When they're released, they get no severance. It has led to horrifically high rates of premature death, addiction, and chronic injury that have plagued this industry. Hulk Hogan's betrayal in 1986 was the foundational act that allowed an exploitative system to become unbreakable. He chose the team of the millionaire owner over the team of the workers who bled and sweat alongside him. He pulled up the ladder and, in doing so, helped forge a gilded cage for every single wrestler who came after him. The question now, 40 years later, is if the hold he helped create can ever truly be broken.